All right, all of you freedom-loving boys and girls, welcome to Mission Critical Podcast, episode 43. You are watching or listening to this podcast. You are the resistance. Well, that was actually pretty good. I kind of timed that one a little bit better.
Mark is finding his groove.
Hey, we are your hosts. I'm Mark. That's Jeremy. Although I don't know if this is dark mode, Mark. Kind of like the last couple podcasts, just doing with a darker background. I don't know.
Yeah.
Redbeard. Yeah. Hey, leave us a comment. Dark mode, Mark, or should I bring back the light? Right? Evil lurks in the darkness, and that's actually going to be one of the topics or the subject of tonight's podcast. We're probably going to title it something like "You Are the Difference" or "You Can Make a Difference." Something like that. Jeremy, you want to just give a little intro or background on why we're doing this, and we'll do the Mad Minute?
Yeah. So basically, we talk and we cover quite an extensive amount of topics here. And, when I talked to Mark about this particular episode, I said, a lot of people talk about a lot of different things. And it's not saying that they're not worth talking about or they're not noteworthy about talking about, but in the end of the day, like, talk kind of gets old and it kind of gets cheap pretty quick. And so you have to figure out, like, what's your plan of action? How do you move forward? And the goal and aim for tonight is to hopefully be able to outline ways for you guys and gals to get involved and get active in your own communities, to kind of give you a pathway of how you can go about making a difference. And on top of that, I also have a pretty good resource for you guys and gals to find some information, learn how to get active, involved, and a place that has overall great education for a pretty solid price, I would say, Mark. I mean, it's basically pennies compared to what other places would charge you, and it's a world-class education. But we'll get into that as we get into the episode. So
right on. And I just want to preface just on what Jeremy just said. There's going to be some comments that we make here tonight, and I'm sure there's going to be somebody who's like, well, you guys are just being assholes and, da-da-da. I'm like, no, it's quite honestly, from my humble opinion, it's the other way around. It's like, and the reason why I was on board with doing the subject here tonight with Redbeard is because I just see it out there on my work channel. I see it on some of the other channels that I follow from, who are small content creators or, larger people I do business with. And there always seems to be this theme. And so I know that's something I'm going to address. Yeah. Because it goes into like, hey, talking ain't doing. And that's a great line out of Serenity Firefly. But, talking ain't doing. So it's time to, talking is kind of doing in some areas, but you got to start talking. You got to start doing things. And I think that's going to become a little bit more apparent. But so, hey, why don't we jump into the Mad Minute here? Redbeard, you want to go first?
Yeah. So mine is actually
hang on 1 minute.
Yeah, mine's actually going to be like
not a mad
probably 15 seconds. So,
okay. All right, go.
I just want to, my Mad Minute isn't even a point of frustration or anything like that. It's just your friendly public service announcement to let you know that NATO has now deemed Russia as not a threat this week, although I'm sure it'll change again next week as they're the most existential crisis to the human race. But as of this week, they are now not a threat. So I just wanted to put that out there, albeit some countries still are preparing for the worst case scenario. We don't know what's going on. They're kind of like the Minnesota weather. So that's all I have.
My rebuttal, if you want to call it that, to your comment is, again, that whole thing with the German Ministry of Defense leaking that document and now then going back. And then you've got another NATO official out there saying, we need to get prepared. Russia's, after they beat Ukraine, they're going to come for you. Like, so this bullshit just continues and it just continues.
Yep.
See our last podcast if you don't know why Jeremy brought that up.
Yeah. You never can tell these days. Darn kids.
Yeah. Hey, my Mad Minute is it could be a whole episode. And I probably will do a link to Dan Bongino, who's actually done a pretty good job of covering it. This is something that's been near to my heart. My Mad Minute is, it's kind of like multiple facets. Where's the media? Where is actual real journalism?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to talk about January 6th. Where's the January 6th bomber? Why did the J6 committee delete, a shit ton of files? Why do we not see the video and the audio on the pipe bomber and this accident? I thought this was the biggest threat to our democracy since sliced bread or whatever the hell their comments have been, right? So that, and the same thing with the guy having sex in the Senate, right? Dude, that is also, so just like this January 6th thing, there's the possibility that this is a real national security issue, just like people having sexual intercourse in our, in the Capitol offices, like where meetings are taking place because, and this is where I'll shut up. I'm going over a little bit of a minute. Hey, I'll throw myself under the bus. Mark, next time, 60 seconds. But no, seriously, if this is an area, some of this is on C-SPAN, some of this isn't. And if look, I'm just here to tell you, people with certain types of backgrounds and extracurricular activities, those are considered vulnerabilities by many intelligence organizations. And that's exactly the type of person that you try to recruit. Lord only knows what is potentially planted or observed or recorded or otherwise reported on in some of these areas. And we, the American people, we're not even being told the truth. Hey, if this was such an existential threat, and there's the camera, there was where the bench was there. Why can't we see the footage? Why the guy was on a cell phone? Why can't we geolocate that? I mean, there was geofencing going on. So that's my mad minute to wake everybody up is, and this, Jeremy, you can back me up on this. I was saying this last year, where's the footage? Why isn't this focused on? It was in an annex, an addendum to the whole J6 thing. Dude, if this was real and somebody was planting a bomb, you would think that would have been foremost. They clearly are trying to hush this up for some reason. So keep an eye on that, people. And I'm going to do a link to Dan Bongino. He's a former Secret Service guy. I can talk about it from, kind of a little bit not really law enforcement. I studied law enforcement, but I've never served in law enforcement, but I wasn't in the CIA. I know exactly what some capabilities and what we can and cannot do. Hell, the things that I think we used to do, I don't even know what we could do now, right? So there's just no effing way they don't know who this guy is. That's all I got to say about it. So and
I just want to add real quick to your point, it's just a brief response, but if it had been you or me deleting stuff like that, we would have been slapped with obstruction almost immediately. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. So
no, just why not? I'll pour a little fuel in the fire. It's the same thing with the Hillary Clinton email server. You can't totally violates all kinds of rules when it comes to what a SCIF is and how you transfer, how you send and receive classified information or just even even unclass information. And then, there was hey, don't destroy any of those devices. You're being subpoenaed. And then they went and destroyed them anyway, and nothing happened. So again, if that would have been me or you, me and Redbeard, or me and you, the person watching or listening, if you don't think you would have been in jail, hey, you're a better betting man than me, because I know I would have been in jail if I would have done it. So,
actually, Mark, I feel like you would have placed money on yourself to go to jail just so you would have had something to come out to.
Well, yeah. I would have bet against myself, put it in escrow, and had a good yield,
why not?
So 20 years later, when I come out of whatever, maybe I won't say the thing I was going to say about prison, but then 20 years later, I've at least got a little bit of a nest egg that.
Yeah. You got to be forward thinking like that.
But that's a great point, though. There's and that kind of ties into what we're going to talk about here tonight. There is definitely a two-tiered system, whether you want to say it's a system of justice, but there's two different Americas right now. And it can be applied to a lot of different things. Clearly, the elites and our politicians who think they're elites, if you're in power, you're above the law, and where's the media? Again, the media, and there are a handful of good investigative journalists. So
right.
I'll put the Bongino, the link to his show over on Rumble, and you can listen to it. And I highly advise you to go and listen to it. I mean, if you really want to hear some of the details and breaking it down, and coming from the perspective of a former Secret Service officer, right? So there's a guy who would be in the know, right? Of how this works and what the procedures, the SOPs would have been. But, just to that point, I'll put that link in there. But yeah, there's clearly, Jeremy, there's two different Americas right now. Yep. And I think what you wanted to talk about, how you kind of spun this, it kind of goes into it too, because it's a different arena. It's a different kind of subject, but maybe there's 4 different Americas where you're going, but you either got to, talking ain't doing. We're here using a podcast as a vehicle, a mechanism by which we can talk to people with the hopes of sharing some information or challenging a thought process, encouraging people to be better, encouraging people to do their research, and et cetera, et cetera. But then there's another side of the coin in our society, maybe not so much in other Western nations, but at least in America, where if, your side, and it's only on, and I don't want to say our side, but let's just say the conservative side. On the conservative side, or the conservative ecosphere, you got all kinds of people who just, all they do is they attack, and they attack their own kind. Oh, well, when are you going to get in charge? Why aren't you down at the border doing something? But like, what the F do you mean by that, dude? What am I supposed to do? Just grab my gear, throw in my rucksack, drive down to the border, and then what? Just live on the border and just do foot patrols all day long? I mean, is that what you're like? No, there's other things that we can and should be doing. And if you just come onto social media just to bitch at other people, well, then what are you, then, I'll just turn the question around. What are you doing? Right. So Jeremy, is that a good little, does that kind of get you going? Have I circled the wagons?
Yeah, it makes sense. And it lines up, I think, with kind of the overarching theme tonight, which is the idea that like when you, and this is going to be kind of a primer for what I'll get into, but you have this situation to where people are so fixated on talking about all these different things that are going on. And don't get me wrong, like, yes, we do need to have discussions about this, but it's when you get so doomer about it, if you will, like when you really take the doom pill almost incessantly every single day, like you're not adding anything to the conversation that people don't already know at that point. Like and oftentimes you can hurt the conversation because you're not providing any sense of hope or a way forward.
Well, yeah, you're not moving in a positive direction. You're detracting from or throwing chaff into the whole conversation because you don't like this guy's channel, so you attack him.
Yeah,
well, that's just the messenger. Why aren't you attacking, the politician or the big corporation that's actually, or Davos or something that's actually doing this?
Right. Well, and it stems into this idea to where, you have people that are obsessed with this idea of, for whatever reason, just waiting until things get bad enough to where they can live out their wildest armed fantasies and think that they're going to be the savior of their country. Well, I'm going to be the first to tell you that if you have no plan to, stabilize the country after something goes completely awry, then you're no better than a bum on the street at this point that has nothing to their name, that has nothing to look forward to, that has nothing to go back to. And quite honestly, I would say that the homeless guy or gal on the street potentially has more at their disposal than you do, because at least to some of them, they have a desire to get out of the position they're in versus perpetually sitting in the position they're in. So you have a lot of short-sighted thinking in this idea of like, oh, well, all of these, avenues of approach, they're totally worthless. Like there's no point in even doing it. There's no point in getting involved, and there's no point in, getting into like even politics at a state or local or community level. There's no point in doing this because it doesn't matter. But the reality of it is like there are ways to do this where it does matter. There are ways to be a watchman, like a watchman, so to speak, to where it can matter. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. The problem of it is it's not sexy, it's not glamorous, it's not glitzy or anything like that. It takes work. And it's ironic because the side that always gives the other side crap about not wanting to work are some of the laziest people I've ever seen in my entire life. Because yeah, you can go and put your boots on and go to your job and pay your taxes and do that, but you complain about going to your job and paying your taxes and covering all these other people, but yet you're not willing to invest the time that it takes to make your community that much of a better place. And this episode is where I'm hoping I can at least lay out some groundwork here to give you an idea of where to start, potentially how to start, and what you can do to move yourself forward and be that difference, as well as making a difference in your community, your city, or even your state. So,
and so before we get into Jeremy and into, because again, Jeremy's got a lot to share here, and I know what he's going to say. Well, I mean, I don't know all of it, but we talked about a little bit. But the thing I would just want to throw in, and maybe I'll just try to do this in a little bit more of a controlled and measured response. As I just said, what really bothers me is, again, like you hear so many people like, well, we need to action and we need to do this. And as you just kind of said, like, that's not reality and that's stupid. And that may not, that's not a good course of action. That's where's that going to get us? Right. A lot of that. And that's just fantasy world talking. You're not going to do that, but then you hear these people like, well, why don't you, why aren't you doing this? It's almost like everybody's looking for somebody else to do it for them.
100%.
And then they blame and they criticize the other people. So for me, my big issue here with this conversation, I mean, I agree with what Jeremy's going to say, but my big issue, I just want to kind of throw it one more time, is like, and Teddy Roosevelt's got a good thing about the man who's not in the arena, those meek and timid souls. Hey, get in the arena. Look, we're just a bunch of dudes. We don't have a studio. There's no crew. There's no production facility. There's no $1 million budget, but we're still willing to be here and do this. And you can sit and criticize us all day long if it's legitimate. Mark, your beard sucks. Jeremy, quit drinking Pellegrino or whatever. You could find something that you can criticize us on. But if your criticism is like, I just don't like your content. Okay, well then just move on to somebody else's content. But at least we are out here taking the time out of our lives to try to reach out to other people. Again, you can take it for what it's worth. You can either sit and listen to it and try to digest it and see if where's that one little gem, that diamond in the rough that Mark or Jeremy, shares with us tonight, or causes me to think about something differently. That is still doing something, right? But I'll just even think about, other social media where I see somebody, like, okay, well, that's great, but that's all talk. Dude, do you hear yourself? Do you hear what you just wrote? I mean, do you hear yourself speaking out loud? What do you mean it's just talk? Of course it's just talk. What are you expecting? Like, that's just ludicrous. So the quote unquote our side, again, some people might break this into left versus right or conservative versus, I don't think so. I think it's good versus evil. And, even those of us who are good, we can still make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, right? But what I really have learned, and try to be as an adult is, I'm not going to criticize you, the man or woman who's out there in the arena trying to throw punches. I mean, could you imagine trying to stay in the ring with Mike Tyson for even 30 seconds, what that would be like? And that's what it is like being in social media nowadays. But you at least are stepping in the ring and trying to stand up, trying to keep your hands up, or keeping that guy in your guard, or whatever your analogy is. And you're out there and you're also expressing your voice. And that, I think, and Jeremy, if you see where I was trying to go with this, that's the kind of segue. I'm trying to throw that softball up for you. And you are out there expressing yourself. You're making your opinion known, and you're in the public square trying to do that.
Right.
I hope that kind of sets you up for what you're going to do. But I just had to get that up there, because that's the thing that just, seriously, it's like becoming a huge pet peeve of mine. Like, oh, your videos suck or whatever. I'm like, yeah, dude. And I don't have $1 million or a studio. It's just me and a camera, what did you expect? I mean, like, I'm not Joe Rogan. Are you, like, did we all lose our sense of reality and proportionality? I don't even get it anymore.
Yeah. And so I can take that and it actually can factor into what I'm going to say fairly well. And with that, like, there's a realm of education, right? Like, there's a realm of intellect that's required in order to do things. And one of the things that I would like to bring up, just to kind of highlight this, is one of the hot button conversations, and I'm using this as an example, as of late, has been Texas. You have a lot of people that are screaming, for Texas, to exit, or Texas recession, or secession, sorry, and Texas should do this. But it's like, if these people would stop and think for a minute, they would see that there is something in the Constitution, most notably the Bill of Rights, that does allow Texas to do what they need to do, despite the fact of the Supreme Court doing and saying what they said, which I want to remind people that the Supreme Court cannot provide a ruling. They can only provide opinions, and those opinions have to be opinions that are consistent in upholding the Constitution. So the Texas is in no way required to follow any of these arbitrary things because they're contrary to the Constitution. Texas has every right to defend its border. It doesn't matter if the federal government sends agents there. But when you look at this scenario, what is that covered under? Okay, it's covered under the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment implies, and not only implies, but strongly says that the states have rights. The states have rights, and they have sovereignty, and they are it emphasizes the fact that they're their own independent republics, right? So the state of Texas has every right to support and defend their border. And if the federal government seeks to come in and obstruct that, then they are violating the Constitution. They are anything that they do is null and void, and Texas is not required to comply or to adhere to anything that goes on there. As a matter of fact, they have a very, very strong thing, which is to nullify the actions of the federal government. Now, you might be wondering why I use that as an example. Well, because most people don't understand well enough that power that the state has is a power that is derived from the people of that state. The people are the supreme authority of power, in which the state derives its power, in which the federal government derives its power. All power rests and begins with the people. So you wouldn't know that, though, if you don't understand how the Constitution came to be, how we got to the point of our revolution and our separation from Britain. You wouldn't understand these things because you don't know these things. And you don't know these things, one, because you were never taught these things, so it's not willful ignorance. Or two, you do have a sense of willful ignorance because you assume or presume that you know everything there is to know. So,
hey, just, if I can, real quickly, and that was just so well said. I just want to. You just made me think of something. So behind the screen, I was scrambling to pull something up, and here, and I shared this with you, Jeremy, in an email. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to show it on the screen real quickly, and I will have this in the pinned as part of this. Right there. Again, and somebody could say, well, I don't want to read Zero Hedge, you do you, right? But again, but then again, you're just denying the reality. And then I don't know if you got a chance to read this. I will put this up. I thought this was a great article because it goes to your point. We're fighting for control of federal powers that shouldn't exist. I mean, that's not part of the Constitution. And this, America's, you can read it yourself, drafted the Constitution with great trepidation, that just having escaped tyranny, too much centralized power. This is a great article. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit long, but I highly encourage, and I will have this one up. Commerce Clause, the federal regulations. It's so much of everything you said. Yeah. I definitely will have this up there, and I'll pin this in with this podcast because I know that article is going to dovetail as you start getting into it a little bit more and starting to do Chris Ann Hall. So as you were talking, I was like, I got to find that article.
Yeah, for sure. Right. And it's, and this is one of the sections, education. I don't want anybody to be mistaken about this. This is the primary driver. This is the predominant thing that you should be focused on before you go out and you do anything else. You need to educate yourself about the origins of liberty, about the founding of this country, the fundamental documents that led up to our document, our Constitution. You need to educate yourself about our Constitution, understand the words, understand why they use the words and how they came to their conclusions. And look, the Constitution is not a living document. It is a dead document by the fact that when the founders wrote this document, that was it. Their intent is plain as day. There is no elaboration. There is no extra explanation. What they wrote down is exactly what they intended, bar
The
none.
only, just quick timeout, the only place where, and it's not even a disagreement, because right now somebody's saying, oh, that's bullshit. I've always heard that it's a living document. Well, the document's alive as long as our country's alive. But to Jeremy's point, like, no, that is it. There are the words. The only thing that, if you want to call alive, is the amendment process. That would be, in my humble opinion, Jeremy, because there is a process by which we can make amendments.
And even through their intent, I mean, their intent was fairly finalized on that. So, I mean, that even in and of itself, the action of itself would maybe be considered that way. But in the general sphere of it, it's not a living and breathing document. That is a peddled falsity and falsehood that has been sold to a lot of people, because what it does is it implies like, oh, we can change this and we can change this, and if this gets old, then we can do this and we can do this, and that is not the case.
And then for anyone right now, again, if somebody's like questioning it, do your own research. Why do we have the Fed Reserve? I mean, just look at so many things that are what we now consider normal. Look at the Patriot Act. Like, I was on the record way back in the day, like, this is a horrible effing idea. No, freedom there's consequences, and freedom is worth the struggle, and it's going to be tough, right? We don't just keep, every time we give away one more little bit of freedom under the guise of, well, because that's how all those bills are drafted. Like this, for the safety of our children, for the safety of our communities, whatever flowery title they give it, you just read between the lines. It's just another way to, to either obstruct or abdicate, or not abdicate, but to confiscate some more of your freedoms. And I think that article I just posted, honestly, Jeremy, wasn't planned. Yeah. I know where you're going to go, but I think that article is another great place. Like the first ultimate step is you have to start educating yourself. That article I just pulled up, whether you like or dislike Zero Hedge, that is still an article. They're throwing that out there. Like they did their research. The person who wrote it did a great job. Jeremy's going to point out some other people, but you also can go out and do a great job and look at this. Yeah. There's all kinds of opportunities. And if we don't do this, and you sit there and you throw out some shade on social media or whatever, like, oh, you guys are just idiots, and why don't you guys do something about it? Like, do you even understand what this process is? That's like, again, you're not even, I'm going to sit and talk about football, but I don't know the first thing about football, but I've watched a game, so therefore I'm an expert on football. Like, that's not how it works, bro.
Yeah, it's, it brings up a couple different points that I would like to kind of make in accordance with that, which is, we look at, the educational aspect and the Constitution aside, and not to say that in a negative way, but the Constitution aside, I mean, you have people that say, well, this amendment was put in or decided on for the Constitution. It's like, yeah, but you also have to understand that in order for an amendment to have any weight when it's added to the Constitution, it has to be in accordance with the principles of the Constitution. Now, granted, we have amendments that are not in accordance with the Constitution, and there are many reasons for that. There are many reasons for that. But we need to recognize that the Constitution is the prevailing blueprint that provides you with what you need to know, and it shows you where the delegated powers are, where the authority is sent and where it is not sent, and where it's mostly and predominantly derived from. And one of the biggest areas of contention, and again, I bring this up as an example in terms of education, and then after I make this example, I'm going to point you towards an area to where you can get that education and get a world-class education, in my opinion. But one of the most misunderstood clauses in all of our history is the Supremacy Clause. The Supremacy Clause is taught today, in which the federal government is supreme in all cases. That is patently false. The supremacy clause, the basis that it states and the reason it exists is saying, and again, I'm ad-libbing here, but I'm saying this as it is intended. The supremacy clause says that the federal government, the law from the federal government, is supreme as long as it's in accordance with the Constitution. So that means the only time federal law is supreme is as long as it's in accordance with the Constitution. Now, if you sit down and you think about that for a moment.
So, hey, before you go any further, can I give a real world and current example of what you're saying? I just, as you were talking, because I was looking for exactly this. This isn't going to be quite what you're saying, but I just want to bring this up. I'm going to share this real quickly because it goes to your point, and I actually want to kind of actually bring you back to the initial point because I think it's so good. It shouldn't be lost. We should reiterate it. The states do not have to follow on. Look, if it goes outside of the scope of the Constitution, it's unconstitutional. 100%. And the Constitution already right then and there says the states no mas, right? So let me just see if I can bring this up here. Here we go. So right here, I could flip over, but I just want to show this right here. So if you can see this, Arizona built a shipping container wall. Texas built buoy walls and razor wires. The Biden administration sued both states and forced them to remove it. The only time Joe Biden took action to quote unquote legal action is to block states from stopping illegal activity. And so Elon Musk, you got to give Musk some props, man. That guy, he is kind of goat in some ways. This administration is actively aiding illegal immigration. Dude, I don't know how else you can explain that. I mean, Jeremy, what would you say? Is that a fair statement right there?
Well, and to basically come at this from the constitutional perspective, I mean, look, I mean, if the federal government was to make a law and try to enforce a law that is not consistent and adhering to the Constitution, it is of no force and is null and void. So that means that the states are not required in any way, shape, or form to adhere to that law. And they also have the ability not only to adhere to the law, but to nullify that supposed sense of authority altogether. Look, this is why when it comes down to, everybody wants to learn how to overcome these issues, and they want to learn how to get involved, and they want to do something about it. These are only just a handful, a minutia of different examples that exist in our world today. I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands of examples that you could easily go to and see where all of these types of things happen, from federal overreach to this supposed aura of federal supremacy. It never stops. And, this is why education is so important. And on that, I'm going to wrap up the education segment, at least for myself here, Mark. I want to wrap it up with the emphasis of education, with bringing each and every one of you to a place that can offer you a world-class constitutional education, an education that informs you and teaches you about your rights, your liberties, and how you can get into the fight, activated and educated. It's by a lady.
Jeremy,
her name is.
If you don't mind, before we go into that level of detail, which is the next step, let's let Blackbeard, who joined us.
I was just going to give them the.
No, let's save that, because I think that's worth more than just a glancing. Here's where you go. We should talk about why that's important, because to me that's the counter. Like, well, what are you doing? I don't know. She's out there trying to freaking educate people.
Especially at the price point, which I'll bring up.
Okay, but let's just say that. Let's let Blackbeard come in the fight, and then. But on that note. I just want to I want to emphasize it one more time. like go back and look at and look, and my interactions with Jeremy have been challenging me to start educating myself more. And now I start reading more, even if it's just like a little snippet from the Federalist or Hamlet, whoever it might be. But I'm actually reading more. I'm getting I'm opening up my mind to a better understanding of the document, that, you know, what it was, why they wrote it the way they did and things they're saying. So, I mean, Jeremy's point, which seems to have been like so many of us, my fellow countrymen and women, right? You know, my fellow citizens, dude, the states do not have to adhere. It's the Constitution is written this way for totally on purpose. These men, for whatever their shortcomings may have been during that period in time, relative to, you know, judging them by the future, right? Like lest our actions be judged by people 200 years from now as well. But you do not have to adhere to illegal, immoral, unconstitutional edicts, proclamations, presidential, none of that crap. So I just want to emphasize that. Yeah. And then we bring that over to Blackbeard, because that's where you got me fired up, is because you know, like to use a line from a movie, a good movie, but the sleeper has awakened. We've got to awaken the sleeper in all of us. We can't just, as sleepwalkers, you know, just start picking on people. We all need to start doing our own, because the moment you start opening your mind, you're going to start realizing, like, what the F are we doing? And the more you realize, the more you're just like, why didn't I know this sooner? Yeah. Yeah. Blackbeard, welcome to the Mission Critical podcast. I know you've never been here before. Welcome, sir. You swashbuckling. What did Pat say? You glorious you swashbuckling glorious bastard, you. Hey, you're just joining. I don't know. Do you feel like you caught enough of what we were putting down to make a comment right off the bat, or do you just want to kind of chime in with your mad minute and then we carry on with what Jeremy was just saying?
Yeah, it looks like you were talking about the importance of education to understand, and what it is that,
Jeremy, he's not just another pretty face. I know. He's a pretty smart guy.
When you when you understand a thing, you know, it gives you the ability to act upon that or to resist it. And so, you know, imagine that you've been enslaved your entire life, and somebody comes up to you and says, you know, you have a right to liberty. You would question, like, what does that even mean? I don't understand what you're saying. And then they explain the concept to you, and then the light bulb goes off, and suddenly you have an opportunity to desire an idea that you hadn't come across before. Because I think it's a rare thing for any, including myself, any individual to have a truly unique idea. But that's why we have education. It's so that for those who've come before us, who've come across these ideas, you know, like if somebody hadn't shown me, and I'm not very good at it, but if somebody hadn't shown me how to make a fire, like, for me to figure that out on my own, it would take, I don't know if I'd do it. I don't know if I'm capable of doing it. And so it's important to communicate. And that is why there's been such a war on education and on the mediums through which we gain information. It's because those ideas germinate within people. And so, you know, the ruling structure has to ask itself, are these ideas that we want out there spreading, or do we want our ideas out there spreading? And so, you know, it is important to know, like, you have these rights. And one of the things that I think is interesting about the Constitution is, you know, some people think it gives you rights, and Jeremy would know that, and you would know that it doesn't, that it's there that governments are there to secure your rights, and that they enumerate your rights, but it's not an exhaustive list of rights.
That's right.
And fundamentally, it goes down to something that is really beyond the physical, because, you know, you can debate things like, what is the value of a person? And people have come up with, you know, intricate systems to try to establish what that value is. But, you know, the Constitution says man was made in the image of the Creator, or he was endowed by his Creator. He was endowed by his Creator with certain unalienable rights. And so that is an appeal to something which is metaphysical rather than something which is physical. And so I think part of the reason for the push in the education system away from things like the existence of a God and so on is that it's a way to undercut the very idea that you have rights to begin with, because what are they grounded in? And then when the rights are no longer apprehendable, when you can't recognize them in your life, when somebody doesn't point them out to you and you're like, oh yeah, that is there, isn't it? Then everything else devolves to a power play in which the power either grants you or denies you privileges. And that's a more precarious situation to live in, because, you know, when the righteous rule, there's rejoicing, but when they don't, you know, the people suffer. So that's my take on it.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I like
pretty
it.
damn good take. And I think that resonates with what you were kind of saying, Redbeard. Again, my real only contribution into this subject matter is because I'm actually kind of really considering myself more of a, I thought I knew some of this stuff, but I'm really more of a student of it again, and trying to, you know, get back into wrapping my feeble little brain around some of these like just incredible concepts that these men, you know, back in the 1700s were able to, you know, not only, you know, like, you know, not only, you know, enunciate, but just like, I mean, just really brought it home and brought it to bear so you could feel it in your heart, and into what Blackbeard was kind of saying. You just knew it to be true, right? And you knew these things to be self-evident. So my only real addition to tonight's podcast is I'm just really sick and tired of the armchair quarterbacks on social media who will go and they'll attack the people who are trying to get out there, and they're trying to open people's eyes and get them to start thinking. And then they'll say, well, your video camera sucks, or you know, you guys don't, you know, yeah, okay, Roger that. Yeah, you know, if I was Joe Rogan, you know, would I'd love to be on Joe Rogan's show? That would be a blast. I'd love just to meet the guy because he's a cool dude. And I don't agree with everything Joe Rogan says, but Joe Rogan has that platform, and so do so many other people, like, you know, Russell Brand or Dan Bongino or Styx Hexenhammer, very smart people. But see, they're at least they are in the arena. They are educating themselves on a daily basis. They're doing their homework, and they're trying to share that with other people who are willing to listen. That is being in the arena. That is being in the ring. That is being in the fight. So I don't know what it is that people are like, well, what are we supposed to do? Talking ain't, well, then I guess just like, I don't know, turn off your lights, drink a bottle of scotch, and, you know, and just, you know, start your Glock. I don't freaking know what to tell you at that point, dude. I guess other than that, you're probably a troll, and you're here intentionally trying to cause confusion and disrupt somebody else's message. I mean, I guess that's it. But speaking of messages and a way to do that, Jeremy, right? Again, so my biggest concern is I see way too many people. It's so easy to just, as you've said before, Jeremy, it's so easy to destroy. They just want to come on and they leave a comment that just, you didn't even need to write that comment. You could have just stopped watching the video. No one cares that this offended you somehow, right? You haven't really backed it up in any type of, you know, good argument, anything sanguine, you know, anything like that. But so to your point, you know, Jeremy, I think that kind of goes into you're going to have those kind of folk, but where can, or how should we all, then the rest of us, what's a good first couple steps to take, sir? You know, like, you know, how do we, if I wanted to start learning more about this, what would be some things that you would recommend that I could do? Or like the viewers, you know, for the people who are watching and listening.
Yeah. So first and foremost, you know, like I started my kind of this step-by-step process with examples of why you need to educate yourself and the emphasis on educating yourself. And one of the best resources right now that's available is at a place called libertyfirstsociety.com. It's a place where a wonderful woman and her husband, Chris Ann Hall, and her husband, J.C. Hall, have dedicated a lot of their life for the past 11 years to put together like a curriculum and a set of classes and courses that essentially help you educate yourself about many, many facets of this country. So that's Liberty First University. Chris Ann and her husband are right there, as you can see. It is a fantastic constitutional education and training program. But like, I'm a part of it right now. I went back to it. I had previously taken it, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. It's for literally hardly anything a month. It's $12.99 a month. I find that extremely hard to say, like, well, I can't do that. Well, do you go out and buy a case of beer? Because I guarantee you what you would save in not buying beer, you could probably get your education and potentially turn your community around.
I'm just real quickly, sorry.
Yeah.
Jeremy, as a person who doesn't consume alcohol, you shouldn't talk about a case. You can't get a case of beer. I don't even think you could get Keystone or Natty Light for $12.99 at 12 a case. Just throwing that out there.
And I just want to say, if it is more expensive than that, then guess what? You even save a couple pennies because you didn't drink.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Yeah, even better.
And the thing of it is for the first week, or for the first week, your only entrance fee is $1 for your first 7 days. It's $1, and then you'll have the annual monthly subscription fee of like $13, right? So basically less than a case of beer, according to Mark. So
but to your point, you could, just like, half of the streaming services, just go in there and binge watch and binge read and binge, do your thing, get it out of your system, only pay the trial membership of $2.99 a month or whatever. I'm not saying that's the case here, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what a lot of people do. Oh, there's a new season of, I don't know, I'm making this up, Rick and Morty or Deadwood. They'll go and they'll just get a subscription for that week. They'll binge watch it and then they'll be done, and they won't pay the rest. Yeah. So hey, I will have this also. And I do just feel it's necessary to say this. There's no relationship here. She's not a sponsor. We have no, anything. Well, Jeremy is a student of what they're producing, but other than that, and I do follow her. She's a smart cookie. I mean,
she kind of knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that works, right?
Weird. It's like being a constitutional attorney. Like helps you with that. She also does have a law practice, so she does handle constitutional cases in various cases, and if she can't do it, they will give you resources to find attorneys that are adept in on constitutional cases and stuff like that. So there's that. And then her primary website, which is chrisannhall.com. You can go on there and catch up on her podcasts, articles that she writes from a constitutional and liberty-oriented perspective. So you guys can be informed. It really, like, I pushed education. I can't express enough how important an education is. And I personally feel, and perhaps I'm a little biased and I'm okay with that, but I personally feel that you are not going to find a better, at least course-led education for the Constitution than what Chris Ann and her husband offer at this juncture. So, and I will be getting into a few other things pertaining to the 10th Amendment Center as we move on. But that's going to be coming soon. Yeah,
I was just going to start trying to pull them up. Hey, let's get, we got Better Call Paul coming on board. Let's get him into the fight. Paul, you were backstage for a little bit. You heard what was going on. Do you want to come in and do you want to fire your own Mad Minute, or do you just want to kind of start addressing a little bit of what Redbeard was saying? So basically, to bring you up to speed, this is all about, stop whining, stop, looking at other people on social media and saying, You are the difference. There's so much that you, the individual, can do. And to Jeremy's point, Jeremy's really focused on education. There's so much you can do to go and educate yourself on the true meaning of the Constitution, what we really are authorized to do, what's going on that's so wrong, because then you're in a better position to go ahead and be an advocate or to start speaking out, at your local, level, that kind of stuff. Where do you want to chime in, sir? I'll leave it to you.
No, I'm good with responding to Redbeard. I want to say that I took Redbeard's advice and did research on the courses. And one thing that I got out of that, other than the courses themselves, is they are not affiliated with Liberty University. They made that perfectly clear. And I don't believe she's taken any new cases. So she would have to refer.
Yeah, not right now. Nope.
Right. But what I'm curious, Redbeard, in probably 10 plus years ago, I watched the free classes that Hillsdale College offered, and I never found them to have any issues. Right? Are you okay with them? Any issues with them as well?
To be honest, I don't know how they are now. I do know that they used to be a fairly good source. So I can't say enough to tell people not to go there. I knew that they used to be fairly decent, from my understanding, and that they did offer some fairly good courses. And I also just want to add real quick, and I'll let you get back to what you're saying. That is an important distinction about Chris Ann Hall's educational program versus other places. Is hers is Liberty First Society and not Liberty. So, or Liberty University. So those are two different things. And I'm happy you brought that up, Paul, because I don't want to steer people in the wrong direction.
Well, and I will have links to this stuff in the title card for the video here. So tonight, to make sure. I mean, we're showing up on the screen. People should be able to pick it up, but I will put some links in there for you. Hey, so just one other thing. And Redbeard, this is kind of more your show here at this point. You mentioned the 10th Amendment Center. I'll just throw this out there. So again, dude, you don't know what you don't know. And no matter what you think you know, there's always still something more to learn. So again, just even through doing this podcast and these conversations, and, Jeremy and I have known each other for, quite some time, but then life, you're just busy, and then, you come back together. But I've learned a whole lot from him. And one of those you've just already mentioned, Jeremy, and I'm glad you did. I just want to highlight him one more time, because I really like him. I like the 10th Amendment Center too. And so
Michael Bolden and Mike Meharry do fantastic work. I've personally talked with Michael Bolden myself, and he's a super nice guy, super smart. And he really, him and Mike Meharry over at the 10th Amendment Center, along with everybody else who's involved with the 10th Amendment Center, they really do the best of their ability to not only help answer questions, but to educate. They don't necessarily have educational courses, but they frame a lot of their content in a way in which, if you do have a question about something, you will more than likely at least be put in a direction to where you can find that answer, or to where you can learn how to find that answer. So,
and
they do great work.
Yeah, so I've got them up there, so I will definitely have them in there. And so I'm not going to lie. For me, what I really like about the 10th Amendment Center, because they've done such a way better job at social media than I have ever. I'll be the first to admit I suck at social media. It's not my, as Austin Powers says, it's not my bag, baby, or whatever he says. It's not my thing, baby. Yeah. But I like, so, for me, oftentimes it'll be late in the evening. And unfortunately, Jeremy and Better Call Paul know what I'm about to say, because it'll be like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And I'll be trying to come down. It's been a long day, your small business owner, you're stressed. Then there's all this other bullshit in the world. You're stressed. I'll pour a drink, smoke a, little cigar. And this is what I used to like about social media, but I'll spend my time going to their sites and listening to what they have to say, or reading what they're putting out. And it's kind of like I get a small dose of education, so this is where social media can be helpful. Yep. I'm educating myself while I'm sitting there trying to unwind at the end of the day. So look, whether you're doing it, what I just said, or in the morning while you're on the treadmill, or, drinking a cup of coffee, or doing one of those bodily functions, in the toilet, there's always an opportunity just to get a little bit more knowledge, or something that even, and what I like about the 10th Amendment Center, Jeremy, and no offense to Chris Ann Hall, she does the same thing, but what are their names again?
Michael Bolden and Mike Meharry.
So again, and I'm not picking one or the other, but I like how Bolden kind of presents some of his things, and it really does. It kind of you kind of got punched in the sternum. You're like, well, hang on a second, what the hell did you just say? If that's true, then why in the F are we doing this stuff still? Or how is this perpetuating itself in our society right now?
And I will say that Michael Bolden does do one of the best 10 to 15 minute segments I've ever watched in my entire life. He has a way of packaging an issue, totally like breaking it apart, explaining various aspects, and putting a nice bow on it, reconstructed in 10 to 15 minutes in a way that I've very rarely ever seen people be able to do about very complex issues, by the way.
Well, so to give credit to all three of them, Chris Ann Hall and then the two guys and the guys over at 10th Amendment, they do a great job of presenting. They really can. Unlike our Mad Minute, which takes 5 minutes, they can actually put it into a minute. Have a cogent, spit it out, and it makes. And honestly, what I really like is it always, for me, it's always made me want to okay, I want to learn more. I want to hear more of what did you just say? I know I just got a soundbite, but that was okay. And that's all right. Hang on a second. You're citing Jefferson and Madison and whomever. And again,
right.
You think those that's not even all. There's so many people in our history that we just we just don't know and we don't think about.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just so cool to hear that. And then you're like, okay, who is this guy? You're like, that guy did that. Whoa, what the hell? How did I not hear about that guy before? So
100%. Yeah. Do you want me to kind of go into like my flow of progression?
Let's give BCP one more chance to chime in, and then we'll come to you. I'm sorry, that was a mental thing because I was looking those guys up as you were talking. I just had to share it because again, this is new to me as well. And it's worth all the time to go down that road and educate yourself, whether it's to the degree that Jeremy's talking about, or just even following some of their social media and getting some of those longer, more drawn out arguments and giving you the facts and the history and the basis behind it. It's pretty freaking cool. And it does change your perspective. You're suddenly like,
100%.
What the hell is going on in this damn country of ours? So BCP.
Yeah, I have a brief, less than a minute thing to say, and then Jeremy can finish up what he had to do. And I would like to come back to my point later. I don't want to disrupt the flow.
Okay.
So my encouragement, everybody read the Constitution. I can't stress that more than anything. There are other, Federalist Papers. There's other documents that you absolutely need to read. When I was for what it's worth, when I was in fifth grade, maybe 10 years old, probably 9, we had a contest where you had to memorize and recite things like the Gettysburg Address, the Pledge of Allegiance. Really small. I know, Jeremy, that's not a good one, right? But there were a bunch of these things that we had to do. And as a 9-year-old, I did that. I still have that certificate. I'm looking at it over there. I just won't put it there because it has my name on it. I can, it's something that, so I've been on this, I've been a proud American from day one, basically. So that's all I would say, just start with the Constitution and read that. It's free online if you don't want to buy anything. You can probably get audio.
Dark mode, Mark, you can't see it, but if anyone who's paid attention in our previous videos, when I've been so we'll let Jeremy talk, but that's what you got back over here. I mean, I got 2 different smaller version, just pocket things. And hell, what does Bongino say? Dude, it's an app, for I'm an old school person. I want the hard copies, to what BCP is saying. But for all you other kids, hey man, it's an app. Put the Constitution on your phone. And then, when you're like, okay, the boss isn't looking. Yeah. Read the preamble. Oh, okay. I should, what is it? What is actually the First Amendment really say? And Jeremy, and this is maybe kind of coming to you. We used to do this when we were doing some of the giveaways. What does remember that question? Because everybody thinks the First Amendment's free speech. I'm like, oh no, what does it cover? We should all, thank you. We should all know these things. So does that set you up at all for where you want to go?
It does. And I just want to also mention too that while I do very much agree with Paul and Mark, it is a very good thing to take the time to read. And I think that with Chris Ann Hall and even the 10th Amendment Center and several other people out there, they will be able to also help you understand the numerous areas of the Constitution. So that way you can better understand what you're reading as opposed to just reading it. But that being said, there are publishers who do put out copies of the Constitution that are not always accurate. So there are some revisions that are made via publishers, and that is something to look out for. So make sure that when you are looking for a Constitution, you vet the source that's providing the Constitution, and you do your due diligence just to make sure that that the source that they're deriving their information from is actually a fairly good source. You know, and
Jeremy,
I
Jeremy,
think,
are you implying that mainstream media or publishing houses would distort or omit or insert, like they would otherwise render it different from the original version, such as,
unequivocally, yes.
such as, I think it was NBC or whoever was doing, like, I didn't watch it, but that it was a football game. I guess it's the playoffs. And the guy was like giving thanks to God, and they so blatantly edited that whole thing out. And so, if that's all you're reading or seeing, you don't get the whole picture, or you get a different narrative. You get a different,
Yeah. And it unequivocally, yes. Yeah. I mean, as with many things that goes on nowadays, what better way to change a person's understanding of what their rights and liberties are and where they stand in regards to the flow of authority and power than to fundamentally, slowly but surely start to alter the very document that explains how that actually functions and how that works. And that being said, there is a flow. Chris Ann Hall, in one of her courses that I took, did a great job of explaining this. And it was essentially, there was 4 marks that showed you what the flow of authority and power is. The first one being our Creator. And for Christians, that is God to us. And then you have man. And then from man, you derive society. And then from society, you get government. Notice that government is the lowest on that pecking order. Government has the least amount of authority in this ladder, if you will, of power and authority. Why? Because a just government is derived from the just consent of the governed, right? So in order for us to understand how this works, we have to understand where our authority comes from. This is a huge educational point. So we as individuals have the authority. We have the greatest amount of authority to alter and change how things are. This is one of the things our founders knew. That being said, I'm going to take us now into a flow of progression. I want to iterate to you that are listening that this is kind of a compacted version of it. If you want to see an expounded upon version of this, highly recommend you go check out Chris Ann Hall's courses. It's in a course called Activism Bootcamp. It shows you how to fully get involved at the local, state level, and how you can make the greatest change within your communities and at the local, state level. So the first area is going to be when you're looking to get involved. It's good to get to know your neighbors, get to understand and get involved in your church or your parish or whatever community type of thing that you're involved with. I understand that not everybody goes to church, but it's good to do that. Ingratiate yourself with the businesses, get to know your sheriff, because look, if you're looking to get involved in a position of office or in a commission or in a committee or something like that, the fact of the matter is people are not going to put somebody forward that they don't personally know and that they don't like or that they don't have a rapport with. So understanding how to get involved and get to know people is going to be huge. And the same is said for if you're going to have an organization that kind of acts as like a watchdog or a watchman organization, where when you go to create an organization and bring people together, you still have to ingratiate yourself with your neighbors, your sheriff, your church, and your parish and local businesses and stuff like that, because the more you do that, the better received your message is going to be. That being said, don't also dress like a person that looks like they're fueling for a fight. Dress in a semi-business casual type of attire if that's your thing, or dress in a somewhat professional attire that doesn't look messy or anything like that. Dress like you're supposed to be there, essentially. And Mark knows kind of where that saying is, you know, if you walk into a place, walk in like you own it. Walk in like you're supposed to be there, like you're meant to be there. And that's how you kind of have to go about this. So it's a very slow in systematic process, but this is going to build up to helping you get further. Now, if you look at that, that's just the first step. So ingratiate yourself again with your neighbors, your parish, businesses, the sheriff. Dress like you're supposed to be there, act like you're supposed to be there, and do everything you can to get to know people, right? So the second the second point that I want to make is actually going to slide into the realm of creating creating kind of like an organization or a group of individuals that would act as a watchdog. Now, I understand that not everybody can make it to every committee meeting, commission meeting, city council meeting, or anything like that. But this is where, when you're able to create a group based off of your connections that you have, because being connected makes a difference, you'll be able to then also allocate duties and certain responsibilities to those people. So you're able to have these meetings all covered by somebody. And it's always good to send two people, because one person is far easier to single out and attack than it is with two people. And with two people, you also have a witness in case, you know, they start to get, you know, fairly pressuring or fairly awry in their line of conversation. But nonetheless, it's good to be able to allocate resources that allows you to cover these important meetings, again, whether it's a committee, the council, whatever the case is. You'll be able to have people go to and from these places, provide you with information, and basically help you create a way forward. Watchdog organizations are a fantastic way in your communities, cities, and states to affect change. And there is essentially organizations like the 10th Amendment Center, and I believe Chris Ann Hall has done this, and there's several other organizations that they do have templates in order to help you, literally help you draft a law or help you draft a bill to put forth to the state, or to draft an ordinance for your city. So there are organizations that already have these templates available for you to help you achieve the means and the goals that it is that you seek to carry out. There's tons of resources out there, but one, you've got to have the influence. You've got to have people want to rally around you. Then you've got to take that network and you've got to start putting them into meaningful action to gather information, to go forth and essentially be your delegates whom you would send out to these meetings in order to make the biggest difference. And from there, you can also then start to figure out how to figure out ordinances, laws, and bills that you want to see passed, or how to fight these things, because knowledge is power. And when knowledge is diffused, you're the most powerful thing in the world. Now,
and just a quick interruption, just real quickly. And also, you cannot shape your battle plan. You cannot, properly adjust if you're not out there observing what the enemy is doing. So, and I'm not saying that you're automatically assuming that the person at the school board meeting or the town meeting, the city council is an enemy, but you got to attend these things to, because otherwise they're just doing things in the shadows, Right. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because you won't even know how you're going to change your battle plan, and if you're not in the battle, if you're not on the battlefield.
And it's important to note that many of these meetings are often scheduled not for your convenience. So that's why it's important to have people available, or to find people available to help you cover as many of these meetings as possible, especially if they're pertaining to certain subjects that you're really, really interested in either helping along or helping to stop because it's affecting, it's a liberty issue or it's a right issue or whatever the case might be. Now, again, full disclosure, I know I'm going through this a little bit quickly, but there is a far more expanded and thorough example of this at Liberty First Society, and they will be able to, through their course, be able to expound upon this a lot more. So I'm going to move on to my third point here. Yep, Liberty First Society, and it's the activism boot camp under their browse courses menu. So for the third portion, and this is going to factor into actually two areas that I have set out. Once you've kind of become ingratiated, say you don't go through necessarily the community watchdog group or the watchman group, if you will, but you want to do something to get a little bit more involved. So that would mean that you either have to put in to run for a city council, a committee, a commission, or something of that nature, or one of the most effectual ways to do that in order for you to learn the process is going to be by becoming an aide for some of these people. Now, I understand that this might put you in a position to where you're not necessarily agreeable with one party or the other. Totally understand. But the point here that I want to iterate to people is this is an opportunity for you to learn the process of how things work, how things are voted on, what the internal workings of these types of things are as it pertains to a council, committee, or even if you look at something bigger like running for state senate or the House. So
just a quick comment there, Jeremy.
Yeah,
look, we can all sit and talk about this all day long, but unless you're in that moment or in that arena, you don't really know the machinations behind it. So I think the other point of what you were just kind of saying that I really liked is it's good reconnaissance, like, because you're now in the trenches, even in a supporting role, even maybe for somebody, as you just said, Jeremy, for someone with whom you do not totally agree, but you don't also maybe disagree. But now you might be walking away like, oh my God, this is so effed up. No wonder nothing gets done, and then how else can you fix a problem if you don't even know about the problem? And you're not going to know about it from the sidelines.
And that's why, like it's greatly encouraged. Like, even if you can become an aide and you can see how the inner workings actually function and stuff like that, because there still is a process. It might be a broken one, but you could still figure out how that process works. And if you do that and you spend enough time as an aide, you may be that person's successor after they leave the committee, the council, or a recommendation by that person you've worked for to be a viable candidate to fill that spot when the time comes. So that is something that I think is invaluable. It's a area that I would encourage people to pursue, it's a lower entry position for you to get involved. That's going to help you kind of find your direction, if you will. And there's one last item that I want to cover here real quickly. Most people don't know this, but precinct committee members have some of the greatest amount of power that you can ever imagine. Now, how is that? Well, the precinct committee members, they elect party leaders. The precinct committee members also vote internally to endorse a particular leader, and they also lead the get out to vote. So why is this important? Because these individuals essentially select the people that the party is going to put forward on tickets. So therefore, they have the greatest amount of control when it comes to which candidate is going to get the endorsement, which candidate's going to make it on the ballot. They hold a ton of power. And a quick little side note here, they also more than likely have only half the seats filled. So that means that precinct committee members the membership is only about half full for the most part at any given time. So that is one area that if you can get involved in that and you can fill a seat, you can have a larger say in the type of person that you would like to see get onto a ballot, a person that also better represents causes like liberty and in important causes pertaining to liberty and rights. You have a great amount of say and power and authority when you become a precinct committee member. So I know it was quick, but these are just several avenues of approach that hopefully you all kind of can take away from this podcast and from what I was saying. And hopefully you take this and you go to Liberty First Society and you take the opportunity to learn from Chris Ann and her husband, because they expound upon this so much more, and they have so much to teach you about your liberties, your rights, things that you never even knew, and from origins that you never even would have suspected. This country we have such an amazing foundation, and it's filled with such a rich history of participation by the average individual. And what these documents that we have basically lay out before us is something that I don't think we'll ever see again if it gets bad enough. So we have to defend our republic, and the best way to do that is not to sit and talk about it, but to get in the trenches, pull up your sleeves, and get to work. That's the best and most effectual way to do that. And we can do this. We can do this. It's not sexy. It's a lot of work. It's not as easy as going and grabbing your favorite, fighting or battle implement, whatever that may be. Because in the end of the day, there's still a lot of fight left. There's still a lot of hope. And these are the pathways that you can take to make a difference starting tomorrow.
Before I turn it over to whether it's going to be BCP or Blackbeard, but just another point, and see, again, you have to be open-minded, and there's so many different ways you can learn. And I don't want this to take away from anything you just said, Jeremy. But so you're talking about these committee members, right? At that very low level. I just started watching The Wire again. Just like you either like The Wire or you don't like it. But each season has a slightly different twist to it, and I'm just wrapping up season 3, and it's all about what you just said. It's a guy in Baltimore who's he's on a subcommittee. He's getting to pick and choose and hold people's feet to the fire. Is it a sexy position? No. And I'm not. And honestly, Jeremy, I don't know if you're espousing that people should go out and strive for those positions. However, to your point, we're going to make those. We're going to have that influence and make those difference at the local level. So this, to me, is the local level, because this is about as local of social media as you can get. 4 dudes, 5 dudes, 3 dudes, in their houses with web cameras, having a drink, eating, kicking their pinky out when they're toasting each other. That's about as low level as it can get. And for anybody who's watching and listening to this, you're at that same level. It's got to start someplace, right?
Yeah, and it all starts with you.
Right on, brother.
Because again, where is the power derived from?
Us.
From us.
Yeah, us.
It always has.
Well, but we've so forgotten that. All right, Blackbeard or BCP? Blackbeard. Okay, other way though on my monitor, buddy. There you go. That's the best way to do it. Yeah, just point some rando direction. Yeah. All right. Our swashbuckler extraordinary, Blackbeard. It's all you, sir. No, you're on mute still. You're on mute. There you go.
Yes, I pulled a mark.
Hang on. Well done, sir. Well done.
Touche.
Right. Yep, that is well done.
No, I thought that was really profound. It was really concise. You can tell that he's thought this through and spent some time on it, and I appreciated it a lot. I think that the future is definitely local, that we've been living at a scale that's just far too large and very ignorant. For me, the difficult thing, and it's not really an excuse, I suppose, but it's just I feel no connection to my community. In fact, I wish I didn't live here. It's just hard, but I live here, so it's just it would be nice to be like around people that that are more like-minded and frankly in a more prosperous region. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be active or that things won't affect you, because you are where you are. And I think so stop me if I've already said this, but there was, I think I said it to Jeremy, but there was a story that I was watching about a guy who went, like, he was going hunting and fishing in Alaska. And it was one of those remote locations where you have to fly in by plane. So they flew him in to this cabin, and his buddies were supposed to pick him up in 2 weeks. And they ended up that nobody came for him for 6 months. And he said that in that time, what he learned is that you'll never be where you want to be until you want to be where you are.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit more profound, but I mean, I'm picking up what you're putting down there.
I like that. I dig that, man.
Seriously.
So no, Jeremy made great actionable points, and I can't really add anything further to that. It was good.
Well, you just did though.
Yeah. Nice little garnish on a well-prepared dish.
Yeah, that was like that sous chef with the little squeezy thing, just to do the last little dollop of gravy and a little swirly design on your steak or something.
Now Paul's got to come in with a fancy little spritzer.
Hey, Paul actually has some things that he wants to talk about, and look, and I, we're trying to do these, with a different timeline. Jeremy, we could easily just put you full screen and let you talk for 3 hours. But we're at an hour 20. I thought what you just said kind of nailed it right there. I thought that was a great thing. So with everyone else's permission, let's go to 100%. BCP. Well, see, I'm doing it all fucked. Yeah, wherever. Let's go to BCP. Yep. And then maybe come back over final comments, and then Jeremy for you for closing.
Yeah, I'll yield the entire floor. Let these guys roll.
Okay. So. And I know you got to bounce here pretty soon too. You got a hard time. So, all right. BCP, it's all you, sir.
Yeah, so I want to say that I agree with Blackbeard. Jeremy was right on point. There's a lot of things that I absolutely, everything I agree 100%. All right, so I don't want to distract from that. So that's the main point of this evening. I'm going to do my mad minute at the end of the night.
Nice.
The SCOTUS decision to allow the feds to cut down barbed wire. Okay, it's a disgrace, and I'm not an attorney, but I'm going to make a point here, and I want everyone to consider this. And if you're a lawyer and you want to tell me you're wrong, that's fine. The way to legally enter this country as an immigrant or somebody as a refugee is through a port of entry. These barbed wire setups were set up by Texas on areas that were not ports of entry because people were sneaking in. If you sneak in outside of a port of entry, you are breaking the law. You are invading this country, and Texas has every right to put that barbed wire up. So those 5 blind mice that voted for this, one, I'll only blame Coney Barrett because we know Roberts is an idiot. But for her to go with this, they don't know the law. And we've had this discussion, Redbeard, is this in the Constitution? No, that's not in the Constitution. What's in the Constitution? The feds do have the right to regulate immigration, but they can't declare an open border. There has to be a port of entry there. So tell me if I'm wrong, and I'm done for the night. I mean, that's good. That's my man minute, and we can end my part.
Do you see what I'm highlighting? I'm not over on our screen. I'm over on the article. Did you see what I just highlighted, Paul?
Yeah, I had to make it bigger because I'm blind.
Okay, and their argument was because it complicates the apprehension of migrants. I think you just kind of threw that whole thing out of the
Yeah.
The baby outlived. Yeah, they're not migrants. And what do you mean it complicates my ability to apprehend them? Dude, it stops them so I can apprehend them because they're supposed to come through the legal POEs. Period.
Yeah.
I like your. I'm on Team BCP right now.
Yeah.
Hey, I did have one last comment though, going back to for my kind of final comments, and then maybe coming to Redbeard or Blackbeard before we go to Redbeard. your comment about you just don't feel that much of a connection to community. And we've all, just so everybody watching, like, unfortunately, we're losers. And there's been more than one occasion where it's been a Friday or Saturday night and it's 8 o'clock and one of us calls. And the next thing you know, there's like 2 or 3 of us talking, for an hour or two on the phone. And see, that's community. But so to Blackbeard's comment, there's no sense of community. I would just argue, and it might be kind of strong or weak, but I think that is, if you look at society, you look at social media, look at all the things we're talking about, it is to destroy that sense of community, right? I'll be the first to admit, I've decided I'm going to stay in Minnesota, but I'm leaving Duluth for the exact same reasons you just said. I have no sense of community here. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are other like-minded individuals, and I'm sure there's a lot of great people here, but this isn't my community. And Duluth is letting me know with each passing day that this isn't my community. They don't consider me part of their community either. So I'm going to go someplace else where there are like-minded individuals. And then to everything, that Jeremy said and Paul said, and you've said as well. And, where I can actually meet the sheriff. I can actually meet, the Chamber of Commerce, or, and I can be a part, and and then to Jeremy's point, and that's when I will then start going to meetings, and I will start, considering some other options, because there's just no chance in hell here in Duluth, because I'm not part of their community. I've been here for 10 years. There's not been a single person who's ever even interviewed me, and I make outdoor gear, and we're a big, it's handcrafted. It's because my hat is camouflage and some of the material I use is camouflage, so they don't want to talk to me. I'm not part of their community. They've made it known. All right, fine. So I liked what you just said. I don't know where I'm going with that. I don't know if you want to add to it, but I hear you, brother. Yeah, there's plenty of people who are living in certain areas, and there is no community. There is no sense of community. So I'm going to go someplace, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I'm going someplace where I at least will have, that's actually almost my most important criteria in my decision-making process for where I'm going and why. And it's community. Seriously.
Yeah.
You want to add to that, Blackbeard? You're on mute still, sir. There you go.
Just don't want you to hear all my, but, well, I think that what it is it's like when you're amongst, people that are around you. I'll just say something. I'll try and be as brief as I can. I remember listening to somebody who said that when they were young, they were old enough that they witnessed the introduction of the television. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe it's actually mandated or was mandated in the UK. And he said they would go to the parks on the weekends and they would see all the people milling about and having discussions with one another. And then when the TVs came in, suddenly the parks emptied and it was aglow inside every home and everybody was isolated. And I think that has been just profoundly destructive of the sense of community. And what it's done is, instead of the passing of information interpersonally between people that you actually live in proximity to, the information now comes centrally from very distant places and is all homogenized. And as a consequence of that, you have homogenized minds that bifurcate according to their proclivities. And there are studies that show, for example, that if you have like a liberal bent to your policies, then there are different sizes of structures in your brain. And if you have a conservative, there are different still. Like, for example, there was a study that came out that showed that liberals have a far reduced disgust sensation, so that they aren't as disgusted by things. And that's just one example. But the idea is then, so now we're bifurcating society and it becomes more and more polarized. And then you start to wonder, well, I don't even know my neighbor very well, frankly. Yeah. And it's like, is this guy, like, in his family, if he has one anymore, like, are they worth defending? Is there anything here that's worth me putting in the effort to defend in any way? And I think that whatever has happened, whether it's intentional or unintentional, we're in a place where the motivation even to protect your rights is gone. And as a consequence, the people that would seek to trample them have a reduced resistance, and that benefits them. And it's been to our detriment. And so we're all living in with this hole where it's like, where are my friends? Where are my family structures? Where are, you know, we go to these, I mean, it's not that we don't have friends per se, but it's just, it isn't the same as a community. It isn't Jim shops in my store and I go to Bill. My wife goes to Bill Wife's, you know, sewing whatever, and our kids go to school together, and you know we go to church together, and it's like there's no skin in the game for one person into another person's life, and it makes it a very hard thing to find the motivation to be like, no, I have something here worth saving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that right there, and that almost needs to be a follow-on podcast. I mean, one of the reasons I stopped going to church here in the Duluth area is I went to a couple of them trying to find, you know, the one that was going to be good for me.
Mhm.
But the common denominator amongst all three of them was there was no even sense of community within the church. I was just being lectured to by the man behind the pulpit on political things, and I'm looking around like I thought I was here for my spiritual salvation, and I'm looking at people and trying to say hi, you know, and this, but everybody just would get out and walk out and just, you know, beeline to the, I'm just like, wow, this town is weird, dude. But not to dig us down too deep on that, but I just like it because I think that echoed what you have to say, Blackbeard. I did pull up that document while you're looking, and I'm going to have that. There's going to be, boys and girls, there's going to be a lot of little like pieces of research here and literature in the title card of tonight's video. So please do look at it. You know, 10th Amendment setter, Liberty First. I'll have some of those articles from Zero Hedge. That's just what I picked. There's all kinds of different good alt media. But then Blackbeard just shared a UN publication that I think that's worth people just having a chance to look at, because it doesn't quite, but it fits in with what we're talking about here right now tonight. On that note, Redbeard, I'd like to give BCP, Blackbeard just finished. Let's give Paul. There you go. Let's give Paul an option, and then let's come to you for closers. That sounds
Perfect.
good. Yeah, Blackbeard, you're the only one who made. Okay, can you make it sparkle? Can you make it sparkle for us?
Only Blackbeard can do it.
Yeah, come on, make it sparkle.
Oh, I can't do it. I'm on my notebook. It's my tablet that does it.
We talked about it. I wanted to see some sparkles. All right, BCP, what do you got for closing comments there, sir?
I just want to say, with every topic tonight, search Google and then go to another site, like use a Brave browser or use DuckDuckGo, and see the differences you get. Because if you search Chris Ann Hall in Google, the first thing that's going to pop up is a negative article. So go to the other ones as well. Just make sure you do that. And not just for this topic tonight and these topics tonight. Do that every day. That's your due diligence. Use multiple search engines to make sure that you're getting the truth, or at least a balance of opinions.
Yeah.
Well done, sir. Well said.
Nice.
That's a good closing point. Thank you. That's why you've got the most robust of all the beards, right? Like, no, Jeremy's got the biggest beard, but your beard is clearly fuller than, you know, like I get the impression that you've got animals living inside your beard, like from a Gandalf movie or something. Your beard is so thick, it's like a forest.
Yeah.
He's looking around for like the squirrel. Or the
bird. You know, every once in a while I could pull out like a knife or something.
Oh, that was
nice.
Oh, wow.
Done.
Wow.
Done. A couple episodes we had Blackbeard using AI to tell us poems, and now you're doing, like, you know, all kinds of magic tricks.
Hey, you know,
are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
That might not be classified as like a dad joke per se, but that was definitely a dad trick if I've ever seen one. So
yeah, it was a dad trick.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Solid.
All right. Speaking of solid, your outros are always freaking rock solid, brother. So what do you think? You got a final comment, or do you just want to?
Yeah, I just have one quote. People, you know, there's a lot of people know about the founding fathers. Many people don't know of the many founding fathers, but even less people know of the founding mothers of this nation. And one of them, who tends to be one of my favorites, is Mercy Otis Warren. And she has a quote that really, I think, is profound and really strikes to the center of the topic this evening. And her quote is, we will stand against tyranny today, or our children will bow tomorrow.
Well, you're going to have to share that with me. I'll get that into a ticker later. That's a good one right there.
To me, if that's not a call to action, for in the very least for you to want to defend your children from an uncertain and potentially despotic future, to where they may have no future, I don't know what else to tell you. The time for action is now, that and the people to do this is you. There is no other you. There is no other replacement. Sitting around waiting for somebody else to do what you should be doing yourself is not the best way to go about things. It's the most ineffectual way, I would rather say. We must take charge of our lives. We must take charge of our communities, take charge of our states, and do what we need to do to be the bearers and proud sentinels of our liberty and of our republic, because nobody else is going to do that. It doesn't take an extraordinary person. What it takes is an ordinary person to do something extraordinary, and each and every person has the potential to be an extraordinary person. So,
and I just had to throw that up there as you're saying, because I like what you're saying. I hope I didn't detract from it, because that to me is the other side of the coin of what you're saying. It's that kind of stuff right there. Because if people follow what the sentiment of what you just expressed, then you'll see the irony of that cartoon, and you'll be like, yeah, that's exactly what's wrong with what we are right now. So
100%. So on that note, if you gents are ready, I'll take us out. And
can I try some? I like your outro. If I turn the music down a little bit, do you want to try the outro with the music from Throom?
Yeah, we could give it a shot.
Your outro always gets me excited, and I like that.
He wants the guitar riff with the.
I kind of want you to do that while there's a guitar riff going on. Yeah. So if you're okay with it, Jeremy, once you hear the music start playing, you just take us out, brother, man. Let's see what we can do here tonight. All right. Yeah. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. And action.
Look, everybody, thank you for coming today. We appreciate you checking out this podcast. And as everybody knows, the flame of liberty shall not and will not ever be extinguished so long as there's good individuals and people being you to support and defend it. We can be the bastion and the bulwark to make this work and to defeat tyranny, but we have to do this and we have to get involved. And on that note, Mark, that's all I got. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight, and thank you to every person that stopped by to watch this episode.
I just got to throw this out there. That was like an unrehearsed, you should always do rehearsals, right? Like rehearsals, 1/3 planning, 2/3 rehearsals.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any time for rehearsals. I think that was not very good, because I think it kind of, from my side, it was louder than your commentary. So I hope I didn't ruin your outro. Blackbeard,
it'll still find a way to shine through, Mark. Don't worry.
Well, you always will find a way to shine through. But hey, you guys, how did it sound on your side? Just real quickly. And then anybody watching, leave a comment too. Like, hey, I'm trying to get better at this. Jeremy and I made a little joke about this at the beginning of the night. It's like, we're just taking the time out of our day. There's no studio supporting cast and big corporate money. I just did something I've never done before, and I probably screwed it up. I probably ruined Jeremy's outro, which I love. So I apologize, Jeremy.
Hey, it's all good, homie.
Hey, give us one last little something better than without any background music. Give us one last little good, I don't know, man. Give us a little bit of give us a little red pill or put a smile on our face moment here. I know you got something.
Well, look, is the way I figure it is, if you wake up every single day, you breathe a little life into yourself, you see the sun or you don't see the sun, just know that there's somebody who didn't make it through the night, and count your blessings. Every day above ground is a good day, even if your day sucks. You're still here, you're still mobile, you're still capable of being a living, breathing, empathetic human being, and that's, we need that. And when I do say that, this does befall you and it comes down to you, it really does, because each person is unique. Each person has something to offer, and I want people to realize that, like, you are important. So
And you are the resistance.
That's right.
All right, fellas, any other last closing comments? All right. Everybody, thank you very much for joining us over here on episode 43, Mission Critical Podcast. You are the resistance. There's going to be all kinds of links. You know, if you can, take the time and start clicking on them and just get that brain juices flowing. Like, I think Jeremy did a great job. This was pretty much like, 50 to 3/4% Jeremy tonight. And God damn it. But, look, I'm older than Jeremy and I'm learning all kinds of shit from him. So put all those check the ego at the door and start trying to open your mind. And because that's the only way we're going to pull ourselves out of this mess.
100%.
All right. Then I'm going to end it. Fellas, hang on a second. Everybody else, thank you very much. And so ends episode 43. We'll see you next time. All right, everybody, be good.